on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his...
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Listener discretion is advised. The show contains graphic language and depictions of violence. It may not be suitable for all audiences.
We say fuck a lot.
Hi, y'all. Welcome back to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm the guy she can't get fucking rid of, a.k.a. Dylan.
Boy, isn't that the truth.
Oh, my God.
You know, I was like, 2021, it's a new year. Maybe I'll have some moderate success with this podcast moving forward. And then here you are once again riding on my coattails.
And then you looked over at me, and reality hit you in the face.
That I'm just never going to be able to get rid of you?
Well, yeah.
You're like a tumor.
But you're like the yin to my yang. You're the sweet to my sour.
You are sour. That's
oh,
for
my
fucking
God.
certain.
Oh, wow. A tumultuous time we live in, right?
You mean a tumultuous house we live in?
No, that's not true.
Yep.
No, we are the picture of peace and harmony, me and you. Don't you think?
I don't know. What does my face say?
Well, your face says, fuck you. But, you know, I don't think you really mean that.
You don't?
No.
Well, let's shout out our new patrons who are along for the ride. Mia and Ella, thank you for signing up at patreon.com/mountainmurderspodcast.
Yes, Mia and Ella are sponsoring this episode.
They sure are, and I've upgraded the merch through Patreon. So now you can get some merch along with your membership there. Brand new upgraded Mountain Murders logo. Go check it out.
Oh, my God.
And there are some deals. If you sign up for an annual subscription, an annual membership, you can get a big discount.
Yes, and our patrons are the heart and soul that drive us.
Yeah, it's definitely not Dylan.
Plus, all our listeners.
Yeah, sorry this episode is a bit late getting out this week. I've been a little under the weather.
Yeah, I think people can tell that it's my fault because they're feeling the energy.
That I was sick?
Sick of me.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. That and, you know, I just don't feel very well, but we're going to power through.
Yeah, we suspected she had the Rona, but so far, no results.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the Rona, it's a really, like, weird case of it.
Well, this time of year, crud goes around, nasal, well, now in this day and age, everything's the Rona. It doesn't matter if your back's aching or your foot hurts or you're like you've cut a finger off.
Or you have like a 260-pound pain in your fucking ass. It's probably the Rona.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know what that means.
Okay.
Yeah, but I must say, honestly, that this case we're going to talk about is a very interesting story.
It is a very strange story. Are you ready to get started?
I want to dive in with 2 feet.
Are you all dressed up and ready to go?
I'm all dressed up and then we don't go anywhere.
What costume are you wearing for this?
Well, I feel
like everyone needs to be wearing a costume for this particular true crime story.
I think my outfit right now screams dad, relaxing dad.
Okay.
That's my character right now.
I want to be like the medieval Undertaker.
Ooh.
That's my character.
Oh, bring your bodies to the street.
Yeah, I'm wearing my sweatshirt that says Future Corpse. I'm
so
ready.
Your body car is coming through the street. You have your plague mask on.
Yes.
And you want to bring the dead to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, because we're all going to be doing a little role-playing this show.
Yes, that's true.
Let's get into it. Are you ready?
I am.
I don't fucking care if you're ready. We're going to do it.
Yeah, you keep acting like I have input.
You don't.
Oh, my God.
I was trying to get rid of you.
Yeah, you know what?
I was trying to off you.
I'm like that sticky hand that you used to get in the egg out of the machine at the grocery store.
Like my daughter throws on the ceiling and then you can't get it off and it like dries there. You have to get a ladder and like scrape that shit off of like a high ceiling.
Well, no, as a kid, you get one of these with sticky hands and you flip it and it sticks to the wall. And then you play with it for an hour or two and then you think it's like gone or that it's lost.
Well, it gets all the like cat hair and shit in it and dirt and grime.
And then next thing you know, you see it again. It's like stuck to some, like your clothes or like under the seat of the car or something.
Or it's stuck to the ceiling.
Yeah, I keep coming back.
Yeah, he does. Can't even get rid of him with an antibiotic.
This is great energy. Let's do it.
Clara Jane Schwartz was born in 1981 to Dr. Robert Schwartz and his wife, Joan Radius. Clara was the youngest of 3 children. She had a sister, Catherine, and a brother named Jesse, and Catherine goes by Michelle. So later in the story, I will refer to her as Michelle. Dr. Schwartz was a nationally renowned scientist in the field of DNA and biometrics research.
Yes, he was fairly renowned in that field, right?
It's above my pay grade. Yeah, absolutely. In 1978, he co-authored with Margaret Dayhoff a paper in Science providing the first experimental evidence of Lynn Margulies' theory of the symbiogenetic origin of cellular mitochondria and chloroplasts.
Yeah, I studied that a lot in my youth.
Yeah, I remember reading that paper back in the day. Oh,
Well, I mean, the peers must review, right?
Yeah. He also founded the Virginia Biotechnology Association. The family resided on a family farm in Leesburg, Virginia, known as the Stone House. It was something out of a 1970s horror film, incredibly rustic, dilapidated. It had been in the Radius family for generations, so in Joan Radius's family, the wife's family. Loudoun County, Virginia is no stranger to violence. It's Virginia's third most populous county with over 400,000 residents. Many of those are commuters who work in the Washington, D.C. or Northern Virginia and Maryland metropolitan area. It was settled in the 1700s. It was Virginia's then most populous county during the American Revolution. It was an agriculturally rich, I will get that out eventually,
I understood what you said.
Yes, area that contributed grains to George Washington's Continental Army.
Oh, so
Steeped in history.
It's a storied history of the area.
It was nicknamed the breadbasket of the Revolution. Early in the Civil War, the Battle of Ball's Bluff took place near Leesburg, with many other significant war campaigns being held there as well. In 1962, Washington Dulles Airport was built in the southeastern part of the county. Just to give a little perspective about Leesburg and Loudoun County.
Yeah, we didn't make it up to Leesburg when we went to Lynchburg.
No, we didn't. According to reports, Clara Schwartz never particularly got along with her dad. Maybe it was simply a personality conflict. She had a privileged upbringing, which likely led to a type of elitist, snobbish demeanor. Clara was highly intelligent, not surprising considering her genetics. She had a close relationship with her mother, and unfortunately, Joan was diagnosed with cancer and passed away in 1997 when Clara was only 15 years old. This kind of tragedy was hard for everyone, but Clara's grief was sizable, according to Clara. She withdrew from everyone, including her father, which she already had this very conflicted relationship. So after her mother's death, it just created an even bigger divide between the two of them.
Yeah, it seems like she already had, like you said, this contentious relationship with dad, and maybe mom was a bit of a buffer between the two of them. And then if mom unfortunately dies, and then it does not get better. It only gets worse, the relationship between them.
Her personality was sullen, and she became kind of a loner at school. Now, Clara has been described as a frumpy, unattractive girl who had a hangdog look and a facial expression that could be confused for sad or mean, as if she felt she was the smartest person in the room, often very condescending to others. Clara might have been cute if she'd tried, is what some have said about her.
Yeah, it's almost like she knows that she's viewed this way and like she's leaning into it, you know? It's like she's embracing the look.
But instead of embracing these stylish clothes and the makeup that a lot of teenage girls, get into that. Clara chose to dress modestly in secondhand thrift store finds. She would wear men's baggy pants, big baggy sweaters, Doc Martens. Some people called her look goth, and she gravitated towards the goth crowd at her high school.
Yeah, back in the day when we were younger, that was a look, like the thrift store clothes.
Yeah, I would call that more like grunge than goth.
Well, yeah, but it's like nowadays, like everybody does it, right? I mean, you go to Goodwill and like everybody's there looking for that vintage find or that retro look. And it's like it's almost to the point where it's not even cool anymore because everybody's doing it.
You can't even find the really good, like, quality picks anymore. I remember in high school, my whole thing was to comb the thrift stores in hopes of finding that, like, 60s or 70s style dress, like the big polyester floor-length dress that was just so tacky.
Well, you can still...
And now you can't really find that stuff.
Well, I would disagree to the point that you go so tacky on some of the things that they're still there on the shelf.
That's not true, Dylan. I know vintage, and I'm telling you, those things are hard to come by.
Okay.
All right?
I'll trust you.
But you can go find, like, a J. Crew dress hanging on the rack now.
Yeah, or like a 1999 polo sweatshirt.
Yeah, you might be able to find that.
Which you can buy for $2 and sell for $35.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's upsell.
Okay. Clara was into the occult, vampires, goth music, and role-playing games.
RPGs.
Told you there were going to be some role-playing up in here. She was cut from a different cloth than everybody else. I mean, that's fine. Clara was consumed by an online game called Quest V. Have you heard of this game before?
I'm not familiar with that. She was doing this back before I ever had my little gaming phase, so long before. I mean, you're talking rather early in the internet era, I think.
Well, even trying to research Quest V, there were like other games that were popping up, so there's not even a whole lot of information out there, or it morphed or evolved into some other kind of game.
Yeah, that's possible, but I think this is very, like, only the true nerd, hardcore internet people who were very early on before it was cool, right?
She viewed the games as an escape from her reality, and Clara viewed reality as quite dim. In the online world of role-playing and fantasy, Clara, who liked to be in control, by the way, was in charge. She spent most of her free time glued to a laptop with headphones on, playing these computer games. Clara cared little for interpersonal relationships, it seemed, and most of her socializing took place in forums and chat rooms with others who shared her interests. So rather than hanging out with, like, real friends, she's online in a virtual world playing make-believe games with people she doesn't even really know.
Now, I did get a taste of chat rooms kind of early on, I guess.
You did.
Well, I mean, it was after I was older and could, like, get my own computer. I didn't have it in my household as a kid, like in, like, early 90s or, when it first came out. But, yeah, so that just tells you how early on in the internet age she was, logged in. She's playing whatever game's available. And it really, and I think that's what made it blow up, was people's ability to disconnect from their reality. And just even in a chat room, you can act like someone else. You can present yourself it was like early form of social media.
Man, I remember back in the day, you could find a chat room for just about any topic that you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what were some of the chat rooms you were part of? Like, I remember being part of a swing dance chat room, like in the late 90s.
Really?
Because I was, like, into swing dancing. And so, yeah, there was, like, a whole chat room that was just about, like, swing dancing and swing music. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think our kids can even picture this landscape of where it's just really text. Like, you're in this chat room, and the cool part was...
You didn't even really have emojis?
No, there was really not... That's when people were doing things with different keys on the keyboard, like making out words or faces, things of that nature.
Right.
But you really just had the word, the text, but it was still super cool to be in there with, people from all around the world or nation.
So arcane.
Oh, my gosh.
At school, teachers were concerned about Clara's behavior and attitude. I mean, she was a brilliant girl, but seemed to lack the motivation to apply herself to the fullest potential that teachers saw in her. Often Clara lacked transportation from after-school activities like history club, so a few teachers had to, volunteer to take her home in the afternoons. Dr. Schwartz had been very active in his other children's academic lives, but with Clara, he seemed to take a step back. She wasn't allowed to borrow the family car because she had wrecked it. Though everyone noted the stark differences in how he had treated his youngest daughter, there were no outward signs of abuse. They did know that Clara was a cutter, and she admitted to such. She was known to cut her wrists, cut little slices into her arms and legs.
And yeah, that's a fairly significant issue that people deal with, being a cutter. I mean, it was kind of, I remember that a lot when I was younger.
You remember people doing that?
Well, just that whole term and thinking and seeing, if someone does that, I guess it's self-abuse.
Right.
I'm not real familiar with the entire, what it is, but...
Well, after the Columbine shootings, Clara took to wearing a long black trench coat to school. One teacher in particular found this to be a bit alarming, considering the recent tragedy. When he confronted Clara about perhaps the tasteless decision in the wake of a major school shooting in which trench coats were headline news, Clara said it was for protection against bullies.
Oh, so you're going to present this image don't mess with me or I'll shoot you in the face?
Yeah, actually, that's exactly her attitude. She went on to say it was okay for kids to shoot up a school to get back at bullies, and those kids got what they deserved.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty strong statement. I mean, I could see that making people around her uncomfortable to a degree.
Well, of course, her teacher found this alarming, but there wasn't really much that could be done. In the end, her teacher referred the situation to an investigator who later said that Dr. Schwartz's relationship with his daughter was a fairly typical one. What it seemed to boil down to is that Dr. Schwartz was an accomplished man who had high expectations for his academically gifted daughter. Now, later, Clara's older sister, Michelle, would say her father had concerns that Clara might have been manic depressive, though she had no diagnosis and was receiving no treatment for any type of mental illness.
Yeah, but I mean, you said that other people noticed he kind of pulled back. Of course, he dealt with the loss of his wife as well, just like she lost her mother. So maybe that's going to change how he feels. He could be dealing with issues of his own, depression, grief, things of that nature. But, I mean, it was other people noticed him kind of withdrawn a bit from her academic, things in life. And I'm sure Clara noticed that as well. But at the same time, that doesn't make him a bad person, because who knows what he's dealing with.
Kyle Hulbert was a guy who had serious psychological issues. From early childhood, he had been in and out of foster care and psychiatric facilities. In interviews, Kyle said sometime between the ages of 2 and 5, he first began experiencing hallucinations. Kyle, who was diagnosed with both schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, had spent 12 years as a ward of the state. On September 4th of 2001, at the age of 18, he stood before a judge to determine his future. He was an adult now, his social worker presented. Now, the judge agreed to emancipate Kyle. Kyle's biological father had written letters of concern asking the state to please consider holding Kyle longer, as he was a danger to himself and to society. His father believed if Kyle was released, he would kill someone. For Kyle, there was no distinction between fantasy and reality. His conditions could be controlled with medication, but he was going to have to, care for himself and maintain his mental health. So the concern was, is he going to be able to adhere to these prescribed doses of antipsychotics?
Yeah, I tell you, schizophrenia is very scary. It's a really, I think it might be, in my opinion, top 3 in mental disorders because of your detachment from reality and things of that nature. And, some of the most gruesome true crime stories I've ever heard involved a schizophrenic. But at the same time, it's really sad because this person's truly disturbed. And it's a lot of times they don't realize what they're doing, or they don't realize it's real until after the aftermath.
When Kyle was granted his freedom, he had nowhere to go. The state literally handed him a bus ticket. He had no home, no job, and no source of income. He was given disability, but that check wouldn't kick in until December. So the man, on his own for the first time ever, was going to have to fend for himself. No more nurses to hand him the little white cup filled with pills every day. A minor manic phase would set in, and Kyle would quickly forget to take the medication. And it was somewhat of a catch-22. When he was not on his meds, he quickly felt like he didn't need to take them at all, not recognizing that the spiraling situation was just getting out of hand.
Yeah, and that happens all the time with schizophrenics. They don't take their medicine, or when they do take their medicine, they're properly medicated. They know that they should be taking it, and that it's best if they do.
Well, we won't get into it, but we speak from experience in that we have a family member, a loved one, that suffers from this disorder, and forgetting to take the medication is a really big deal, and it can be very scary.
Yes, but when they are medicated, they don't quite feel themselves either. So, I mean, it's really just a really bad situation because it kind of, I don't know, the medication is significant. I'm no, expert, but it makes them feel kind of, I guess, medicated and drugged and not quite themselves. And like some other parts of their personality, they feel are off. And then they think, well, I don't. And then,
I don't like the way this makes me feel, so
right.
I'm going to stop taking it, and I think I'll be fine.
Yeah, and then they start but they're taking their medicine, they're doing the right thing, and they start thriving, and they think, well, I'm good, I'm an adult, I can make these decisions, I'm okay now, and it's just not how it works. As soon as they go off their meds, all that other stuff starts back up, and it literally just like they flip inward into their own minds.
I mean, you've seen it firsthand.
Yes.
Right? Physically, Kyle looked kind of goofy, I should mention. He was lanky, scrawny, standing at an average height. He had a Frankenstein type of head with this large forehead and chin. He had sunken eyes, slick back, oily hair, and it was black, jet black. And he had this really wiry hyperactivity that would remind someone as a meth addict. That's how people have described his behavior.
So just kind of real animated and like a guy you would notice anywhere you're at, even in a store.
Like his volume goes all the way up to 11.
Yeah, and he's just like kind of, jerking around and like...
Now, Kyle would claim that he never used meth because he didn't need to, considering the voices and characters stirring in his mind. His eyes were kind of shifty. They darted from side to side as he spoke. And anyone who spent any amount of time with Kyle might make the snap judgment that something just wasn't quite right with this young man.
And what's interesting in Kyle's case is a lot of times schizophrenia will set in, especially in males. I mean, females can have it as well, but especially in males in like their mid-20s, heading towards 30s. A lot of times start then. But it's what I think struck me as interesting in his story is he recalls it as a child.
Yeah.
Like his earliest memories.
That is what is unique about Kyle. You're absolutely right.
Like, so he's dealt with that his entire life.
In interviews, Kyle speaks with an expansive vocabulary and appears to be smart, though his memories are blurs of fantastical events that never happened. So he's not exactly what we would call a reliable narrator. Kyle has also gotten into goth subculture, often wearing a long black trench coat, dark sunglasses, as though he was like a Matrix cast member. He often carried a samurai sword, or knives, and he would wear the samurai sword sort of strapped to his back.
Yeah, and like big hunting knives strapped to his belt. I mean, just like you're not going to miss this kid when you're out and about and you see him out in public.
Yeah, walking around like some kind of Terminator or something.
Yeah, like what the hell? And then you add on top of that kind of manic energy, that like over the top, like wiry meth energy, if you will. Yeah, that
coupled with the fact that many people have described him as being kind of goofy looking.
Yeah,
that he almost has like a monster physical quality to his facial features, if that makes sense.
You wouldn't notice this kid out and about.
He heard demons which talked to him. He would call them the Six. That was the nickname he had for the demons. He had a pet dragon.
Oh.
Of course, no one else could see this dragon but Kyle. Every job the young man had worked ended with him being fired. So the first month of his release, he finds a girlfriend and spends much of his time with her. He bounced around, couch surfing, trying hard to never overstay his welcome, which was something he was always very aware of. It's like he just didn't want to feel like a burden. When he didn't have a place to crash, he would camp in a tent out in the woods.
Yeah, but here he is. He's been in and out institutions all his life, had issues all his life. And now, for one thing, I will point out, his dad's comments to the court, I think, should have held a little more water, if you will, because he's been around him all his life. He's seen these things. He's seen episodes. And I don't think a dad's just going to, I mean, maybe some asshole dad would do that just to mess with his son. But you should believe him when he says, hey, he may be a danger to himself or others.
Well, I think it just speaks volumes about how we as a society view mental health in this country. And it's just not a top priority.
Every time in these stories, if you dig into these schizophrenic cases or stories, there are red flags. There's all these chances to catch this before it goes really bad. But here Kyle hits the street. Goes to court. Of course, you want to be out of institutions and away from jail or any of that stuff. And he hits the street, and he has schizophrenia, sure, but he's just a kid. He's an 18-year-old male, and he just wants to, like, meet a girl and, have
Yeah, actually, that was like
sex.
His first priority when he was out of state custody.
Yeah.
My mission was to find a girl and get laid.
Yeah, I want to bang a girl down.
That's exactly what he said.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, in October of 2001, Kyle was invited to the Maryland Renaissance Festival. The fair, or festival, was set up like a 16th century English village with crafts, food. They have live performances, a jousting arena, games, and vendors selling items that might appeal to the crowd. So this was right up Kyle's alley because he embraced that era of fantasy role-playing games growing up. Knights, maidens, wizards, kings, and queens. This was a chance for Kyle to dress up in a costume and live out some of the visions in his head.
It doesn't surprise me that he would gravitate towards this type of setting or these types of people to be around because literally he lives in a fantasy world in his head.
Have you ever been to a Renaissance fair?
No, but I could dig it. I've known people that were into like fighting with foam weapons.
Like LARPing?
I guess that's what it's called. I never knew it back then, but and into knives and weapons and like fantastical blades and things of that nature. And they like to play video games and role-playing games and D&D and all that too.
I just imagine you walking around the Ren Fair with like a giant turkey leg.
I could pull it off.
Like being the fat jolly king.
And like a mug of ale.
Yeah.
Or like a horn of ale.
Yeah.
And like a big turkey leg.
Like, bring me your wenches. I want to have sex with all the holes in the village.
Oh.
Right?
Well, I would never say that.
That is a lie. I feel we're in character, Dylan.
Well, I could lean into that lifestyle and I would be like, bring me your horses and your women.
You'd be like, who was it? Baratheon from Game of Thrones?
I could totally connect with Robert Baratheon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be me.
I think so too.
That was Lord Packer, back in the 1500s or some shit.
Yes, bring me your finest holes and your biggest turkey legs and all of the meats and cheeses of the land.
Except, unfortunately, I think we've been poor for hundreds of years.
I would like some of your meat as well.
Please, another for me mates.
I've seen you.
That's not right.
I've seen you drink meat and you got pretty fucked up.
Meat's good, but you know what? It's like 16 or 18%.
Yeah, I was
going
to say that like 18%, goblet of mead you had, and Dylan's like, woo, like passing out in the street.
Yeah, if you ever try mead at any local brewery or it's got to be a pretty cool place to have actual mead. Only have one.
Just one?
Just one, and give it about an hour because you better hold on.
Okay. Well, for the festival, Kyle wore a latex cat mask that covered the upper part of his head and face, and he painted the lower part underneath completely black with makeup. He wore all black clothes, and walking around the festival, Kyle was excited because he was getting a lot of glances from the girls.
So he's only like, what, 4-6 weeks out of jail, out of the institution.
Oh, he's not like probably 2 weeks out.
It's only a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And he's got a chance to go to this cool Renaissance fair. He's totally into RPG games, fantasy, weapons. He's really big into weapons, almost an expert, I think some people would say. And so he's having the time of his life.
Dressed like a cat.
And he's put his costume together
Meow.
that he thought looked pretty cool. And he's looking for attention from the ladies.
He's got the cat scratch fever.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And so he's getting that attention. Like, people are like, hey, cool costume, dude. People are stopping him. Can they take a picture?
Well, as you mentioned, Kyle considered himself an expert on medieval weapons, particularly knives and swords. When he found a tent selling these items, he walked inside. While discussing the various weapons with the proprietor, he is introduced to a female friend of this booth owner. She was a short, bespectacled girl with big eyes, and her name was Katie. Soon, Katie introduced him to her friend Mike and another girl named Clara.
Oh, my God, the aforementioned Clara.
Yeah, Clara Schwartz. Mike Full had long, shaggy hair, a goatee, and listened to heavy metal music. Clara dressed like Gandalf in a dark gray cape with an amulet draped across her forehead, and she was holding a long staff. She immediately called Kyle an assassin.
Ooh.
Kyle loved this nickname, and he felt they were already role-playing together.
Because of his sneaky ways in his cat costume.
In Clara, he saw a kindred spirit, a person he could connect with on a deeper level. Kyle was self-assured, outgoing, and very chatty. He sized up the group. Clara was quiet, but he could sense she was the leader. He wanted to speak to her, ask her questions, and learn as much about her as possible. Mike was quiet, shy, but Kyle would later find out that Mike had a pretty dark past, almost similar to Kyle's. A year earlier, he had cut himself with an X-Acto knife on his arms, neck, and chest.
Ooh.
Mike was found in time and taken to the hospital. 4 weeks later, he tried swallowing a bottle of pills. He wound up in a mental hospital and was, at the moment, sleeping in his parents' basement.
So, multiple episodes of self-harm. Could you imagine a X-Acto knife because they're so sharp? And cutting yourself with that? Oh my gosh. I don't like to get cut at all. But so he's had multiple episodes of self-harm and just like really in a dark spot in his life, right? Really
Yeah.
dreary.
Had some mental illness,
Yeah.
depression issues. Walking around the fair, Kyle found himself immediately accepted into this group of wayward, misfit kids, and they seemed to be going nowhere, doing nothing, and living in a bubble of melancholy and darkness. He fit right in. These teens were followers looking for guidance from a leader, and here was Kyle. He's ready to swoop in and take over.
Yeah, so it's like he's kind of fell into this, but he's totally stoked because he's made some friends, like you said, kindred spirits. He's at this cool Renaissance fair. They're walking around. People are, say, "Oh, super cool costume," and it's like I think it's like a dream for him almost, like the best case scenario.
And who was Kyle? He believed he was a vampire.
I think he really truly believed he was a vampire.
He believed he was a vampire.
And almost in transition, like into a full vampire.
In late 1999, Kyle had began an online relationship with a woman living in California. Through their friendship, she introduced him to the sanguinarian lifestyle, folks who consume the blood of others. That's what a sanguinarian is. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
No, I think you are. I've seen like a show. I mean, there's people that are totally convinced that they're vampires.
The concept of hunting blood donors and the ritualistic aspect of it all was exhilarating for Kyle. So after doing a bit of research, Kyle was able to find a few nightclubs around the Washington, D.C. and Baltimore areas. One in particular was Baltimore's Club Orpheus, and Kyle became a regular there. His first evening at the club, Kyle met a young woman who piqued his interest and learned that she was also into blood drinking. Based on research, many sanguinarians find blood drinking to be an erotic experience. There are blood fetishes, which are a form of edge play, which is an extreme BDSM behavior, mostly considered taboo by society. Some forms can include smearing blood on your partner's body, drinking blood, or just enjoying the visual of bloodletting.
Well, I could see that in a way. I'm totally, not into that kind of thing, which
You're
is
not?
fine if you are. Well, I can see it being rather intimate. It's changing blood. I mean, how closer can you get to someone?
Well, I tried to put your blood in a vial so I could wear it. And remember, and you were all pussied about me like pricking your finger.
I'm going to say that was a really not a good kit that we got, and I think there's a better way of getting my blood into a vial.
But you also were squealing like, oh no, when I tried to prick your finger. I had no idea you were so afraid of needles.
That's when you found out.
You were a weenie.
I don't like needles.
Yeah.
I don't like to be pricked.
Yeah, I can tell. For Kyle, drinking blood usually included a sexual encounter as well. This, there's actually a name for a person obsessed with blood drinking. It's called Reinfeld syndrome. And I don't know whether Kyle had this specific diagnosis or what. He was previously diagnosed with an eating disorder. He appeared quite gaunt and made comments that he only fed on blood.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like he even went so far as to, like, not even be in direct sunlight a lot. So he's got this pasty... sallow, is that the right? That's not, I don't know.
No, just like super pasty.
So he's pasty, and you already described these kind of hooded, sunken eyes, and like big head, and he's kind of lanky. So yeah, I can really picture this guy in my head.
Right. So I don't know if he had this diagnosis or like if this was a thing that affected him, but he definitely was like not eating and trying to survive on blood alone.
Ooh.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, but so, I mean, he's into this. So you can take someone who's into this, like being edgy or being like a edgelord, if you will, like super gothy. I mean, we've all kind of known that type growing up, I think. Were you that type?
No.
No. But we've known those people who wanted to like kind of freak people out and just do all this stuff that's like outside of societal norms, but they're like trying really hard to do it.
Oh, see, I think I was just a weirdo who didn't really try hard to be a weirdo, and I was able to alienate people just through my personality without trying.
Well, and that's when you're a real weirdo and you're not a poser. Right, that's what posers are. But you got Kyle, you got to consider the things going on in his mind.
Absolutely.
I mean, he believes that he sees a pet dragon everywhere he goes. He believes that for many years he's went to some fantastical world where he knows all these characters and has connected with people.
He also believes he is a vampire, and in his mind he's battling other vampires and believes that he's killed other vampires.
Yeah, and he believes there's this malevolent force out to get him, which is very consistent with paranoid schizophrenia. I mean, even if it's not vampires, it's someone's out to get you, which a lot of time leads to violence against some unsuspecting person because these people are truly convinced that you're out to get them, to harm them, to destroy them, if you will.
Oh my, I feel like you're out to get me and harm me and destroy me.
That's not true.
Well,
I'm here
but I think it.
It's like I'm here to lift you up.
I'm always really paranoid about like, what the fuck's he trying to do?
You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's different.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. I hope so. Are you a fucking vampire?
Well, I don't know. You're all pussified about me like poking you with a needle. I don't know.
Well, maybe if you bite my neck, it'll be better.
I feel like your blood would just be fatty.
My blood would taste like
Budweiser.
No.
Cigarettes.
Craft beer and Marlboro Lights.
Ew. Yeah, see, that's disgusting. I'm going to go eat a vegetarian or something. Now, eventually, Kyle grows dissatisfied with Club Orpheus, realizing that the majority of patrons who were these goth by-nighters, people who worked these regular 9-to-5 jobs, then they would dress up in all black and play into this aesthetic for a few hours on the weekends. Kyle saw these people as posers. And one specific evening, he met a woman who was there with a group of friends. When Kyle is kind of flirting with her and inquires about, is she into blood drinking? She says yes. Then she proceeds to prick her finger and tells Kyle to drink. He was disenchanted by this superficial offering. So he gets really angry. He tells her, like, you're a fucking poser. Everybody in this club is a poser. Like, I'm never coming back to this place. Fuck this. And leaves very angry because for him, being a vampire was a lifestyle. He wasn't goth. He was not part of a trendy subculture. Kyle considered himself to be an authentic creature of the night and was living his life as such.
Yeah, so he's not playing around. I mean, he's for real.
No.
He's studying human anatomy. He's reading all these books. He's learning the best places on the body to like make a, to cut and get a lot of blood at once. And he's had some experiences, it sounds like, with the people who introduce
quite
him.
a few.
Like, who are like into this thing for real. And they're not going to just...
Here, prick my finger.
Have
You
the
can have a
look.
sip of my finger.
Yeah, they're not going to... Yeah, and when and he turns to this person, is like, let's go hunting. Let's go hunt. Like, he wants to look for a donor. And then she's like, are you hungry? And he's like, what? Yes, I'm insatiable. Like, I need the warm liquid across my lips and fangs.
I need it to coagulate in my throat.
Yes. Yes, while I take you in a beast-like
I
mode.
have swam oceans of time to be with you.
Yes. And then she turns around and it's like, you're getting a blood sample at the damn pediatric care unit. Just pricks her finger. Like, yeah, in his mind, this is not cool. You people are fake. I'm the real deal. And, like, even associating with you makes me sick.
Yeah. Like, makes me dumber just to be around you.
Yeah. Yeah, like, makes me look bad because
Go back to your insurance job, you 9-to-5er.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's literally looking over his shoulder for the bad ones. The bad vampires that are coming to kill him.
Yeah, he's like waiting for Blade to bust up in there.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Like he truly, and he really believes it.
He does. Okay, so at the Renaissance Fair, I just wanted to give you guys a little peek into Kyle's frame of mind. Kyle's a vampire walking around the Ren Fair. Katie, she's enamored by her new friend. She thought he looked like Joe Perry from Aerosmith, which was her favorite band. They spoke about Dungeons and Dragons, and the pair parted ways from the others. Katie was very aggressive with Kyle. She took his hand and placed it under her dress. She wasn't wearing underwear.
Oh my goodness, Katie.
They kissed and proceeded to fool around a little.
Well, I mean, she's already put his hand up her dress, so that's like passing first base, heading towards second.
Yeah, I mean,
Where's that third base?
I won't go into great details, but there were fingers involved. You like my noise there?
My gosh.
My sound effects.
Yeah.
They kissed, and like I said, they proceeded to fool around a little. Afterwards, Kyle would discover that Katie was actually Mike's girlfriend.
Oh.
Awkward. Mike told Kyle that he had sex with Katie soon after meeting her. Kyle later described Katie as just kind of there. Like, she wasn't really part of the friend group. She was just kind of there. She never had anything of substance to say. She never had her own ideas. And she always seemed to be directed on what to do, what to think. The only behavior that seemed to be her own was cheating on Mike.
Well, I mean, it sounds like, Mike described having, sex with her really quick, right after he met her as well. So it sounds like maybe she's not like totally into being his girlfriend. Like he's just at the moment, this is we hang out together. It's like maybe Katie doesn't know what she wants to do. Or like she's just doing whatever she wants.
Yeah, I had a friend kind of like that in college. Like she would have a boyfriend and then you would introduce her to like your other male friend. And within like 5 minutes, they were having a sexual encounter.
Oh.
And I'd be thinking, but you are supposed to be dating my friend. And yeah,
that was last weekend.
That was, I don't know.
Yeah, it's Wednesday.
So this kind of reminded me of the friend I had in college.
And you know what? If that's what Katie wants to do, that's what Katie gets to do. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, there might be something wrong with that.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm just saying she has that right.
Well, I'm just saying that if she's in a monogamous relationship, that maybe that's not cool. But anyway.
Well, it doesn't seem like maybe she outlined that.
Later when Kyle apologized to Mike for fooling around with Katie, Mike shrugged and said, I don't own her. She's her own woman. So I guess it was okay.
So at least Mike gets it.
Mike gets it. Katie and Clara had gone to school together since the 6th grade, and by high school, they were in most of the same classes. Senior year, they were hanging out regularly. And at this time, Clara was hyper-focused on this bad relationship she had with her father. She would often tell Katie how abusive he was physically, though Katie noted she never saw any scratches, bruises, or red marks indicating abuse, on Clara's body. Clara claimed her father tried drowning her by pulling her underwater in the swimming pool. Clara also told Katie repeatedly that her father was trying to poison her with the meat he prepared.
Ooh, poisonous meat.
Oddly enough, Katie had dinner several times at the Schwartz home and said it always tasted fine. Clara seemed to be the only witness to this alleged abuse. No one else, including her siblings, saw it, and it never was reported.
Excuse me, sir. Is this succulent meat spiced with oleander? It's poisonous.
Yes.
No.
Clara told Katie, I just wish he'd leave me alone and let me live my own life. Meaning Clara wanted to do whatever she wanted to do while her dad footed the bill. Oh,
Well,
I thought you were going to say something.
No, I'm sorry. I just had a stupid look on my face.
Yeah, I know.
Well, no, I mean, I guess who doesn't? I mean, I would take that offer, wouldn't you? Do what I want to do while someone else, flits the bill and takes care of all the crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
Yeah, but I have to think most parents are going to be like, I don't fucking think so.
Most parents would be.
I mean, I'm pretty sure my parents were like, no.
My mama hit me a lamp, but like, are you fucking stupid?
She handed you a lamp?
Hit me with a lamp.
Oh.
No, I'm just saying my mama.
I thought your mom was going to hand you a lamp and be like, rub one out of this then. Goddamn wishful thinking son of a bitch.
Oh,
No,
a
I'm just
genie
kidding.
lamp. Hey, catch up. No, I mean, I love my mama. She didn't really hit me with a lamp, but she would if I was stupid or tried to buck up on her ass.
Yeah, I believe she probably would have hit you with a lamp.
Yeah, she hit me with anything within arm's reach.
Yeah. Well, she referred to Dr. Schwartz as OG, which is old guy, in her journals and to close friends. Clara would tell Katie and others, including her boyfriend Patrick House, that she was set to inherit $333,000 from her father's estate. She wished he was dead, and when her friends would say, well, that's a lot of money, Clara would follow up with, well, when he dies, we'll have a damn party.
Well, I mean, if you had a friend like Clara who just, I mean, it's one thing to be like, oh, my parents are a drag, or my dad or my mom's overbearing, and I wish I could do this instead of that. I mean, that's kind of normal. But if you have you ever had a friend who's just like on and on and on about one particular parent, or just continually like saying they wish they were dead and shit?
No, I don't want to have anybody complain about anything, so anyone who would just drone on and on about any particular thing and would have completely lost my interest.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that I would stay friends with that person. I would just be like, fuck, dude. I mean, like, either do or don't.
Well,
I mean,
and especially if I was hanging out at their house and, like, witnessing the interactions and just not seeing at all what they were describing.
Not feeling the energy.
I would just be like, okay, I think you're full of shit.
Not seeing them with marks on them and, like, obviously beat up or harmed in some way. Or
Yeah.
not witnessing an outburst, even. Yeah, I would just be like, okay, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, or if I'm there hanging out and the only person in the house that's being an asshole is my friend, I would probably think maybe you're the problem.
Yeah, that's what they say. If everyone around you is an asshole in your viewpoint, you're probably the asshole.
I am the asshole.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Fuck all of y'all. 19-year-old Clara was attending James Madison University in Harrisburg, Virginia, which was about 100 miles from Leesburg. And though Clara had the aptitude, she was disinterested in college. At school, she was a loner with no real friends. She spent hours upon hours alone in her seriously messy dorm room that was littered with food wrappers, clothes piles, trash everywhere. She's just sitting there online. When she did walk around campus, it was often dressed in her cloak and a strange hat.
Okay.
Sometimes when she walked with her, when she would walk on campus, she would have that staff with her. So she's looking like Gandalf.
Well, that's a conversation starter.
Like a wizard. And of course, this warranted looks from her peers. Though her sister Michelle was attending the same university and lived only a couple of minutes away in another dorm, they spent very little time together. Michelle would later say that Claire didn't seem to have any interest in quote-unquote normal college activities, like sporting events, tailgating, parties, or participating in any kind of social clubs. The only time Clara contacted Michelle, which was usually via instant messenger.
Oh, hit me in my IM.
Oh, yeah, AOL, baby, hit me up.
DTF.
Was that your screen name, DTF?
No, that's
Oh.
what people would say in your IMs.
It is?
Isn't it?
Nobody said that to me.
What's it mean?
Well, I don't know. Why don't you explain that to us, Dylan?
It means do the fondue.
Oh, I love fondue.
Yeah, and that's what everybody does.
I love
everybody's DTF.
And she would only contact her sister via IM when she needed something. A point of contention between Clara and her father was grades. So Robert felt his daughter, perfectly capable of making excellent grades, was wasting her potential. He didn't understand why she was failing classes, spending her time with friends he felt were going nowhere, and generally wasting these natural given talents.
So he knows, or I think he thinks his daughter's smart. He knows he's an intelligent man, and probably like, well, has seen her come up through school and stuff, kind of with ease. Academics came easy to her. So here she is at this college that's $20-some thousand a year, which is substantial back then. I mean, it's a lot now. And maybe he thinks she's just floundering, like wasting her time. And it's kind of from a dad's point of view, too. Like, so she's hanging out with these people who are into video games, who wear all black, got that gothy look.
Well, they're not going to school. They don't have jobs. They're living in their parents' basements.
Yeah. I mean, and from a dad's point of view.
Just sort of fucking off.
Yeah.
No goals in life. No direction. They never wake up, in the afternoon with a plan.
Yeah, you never wake up in the afternoon with a plan. That's a good way to put it.
And I think most parents would probably think, you know what? You can do better than this.
Well, at the very least, you can make sure your grades are up. If you're going to fuck off in your free time, so be it. I can't control everything you do, but I at least want to see you just do it. I mean, I expect, decent, good grades out of my 14-year-old.
Well, I'm paying $20,000 a year for you to go to college. The least you can do is return with some decent grades, right?
I mean, that's not a horrible thing to ask.
Clara asked him if she could take a semester off from school, and her father had firmly told her while she was living under his roof and he was bearing the brunt of financial responsibility for her, she was going to stay in college. And I imagine for a man as successful and driven as Dr. Schwartz, who had these two other children that were also on paths to success, it was probably difficult to have this child who bucked the system.
Yeah, and from a young person's point of view, that doesn't mean that you're a total screw-up if you do want to take a semester off, because I've heard of people doing that. I've heard of it being good for them in some ways. But I think coupled with everything else from his viewpoint, like you're just wanting to be lazy.
Yeah, he's like, you're not just going to lay up in my house, no job.
Right.
Doing whatever the hell you want for a semester.
Yeah, run around with your loser friends.
Yeah.
And his viewpoint. Yeah, so I mean.
And I don't blame him.
No, I don't blame him either.
I mean, I would say 90% of parents are probably going to feel the same way. And that's the thing with someone like Clara. Clearly, she had options. I mean, she could drop out of school, find a job, move out on her own, and do whatever she wanted. But a person like Clara didn't have the grit to do this. She wanted the creature comforts that her father's income provided.
Well, that's the thing. If you want to go your own path and go, in a whole different direction than what your parents think, you've got to be ready to do just that. Like do for yourself, make your own way. But if you want to kind of ride their teat, then you're going to have to deal with what they think and what they expect of you.
Yeah. I mean, she had options. It was not like she had to be in this situation. While at JMU, Clara invented her own role-playing game she called Underworld. In Underworld, Clara was the Lord of Chaos.
Now, this gets pretty deep.
It does.
With her, this is something she made up completely and fleshed out the entire thing. And she's found friends.
Scripts, scenarios.
Yes, and she's found friends who are willing to kind of
participate,
entertain.
Yeah.
This, like she would lay out these scenarios, like IM them or message them and say, "This is what's happening in the underworld, and this is your character, and this is what I expect you to do. Well, how are you going to react?" And like they would stay in character with her back and forth. So you could imagine this is a hell of a person or group of friends for Kyle to be around. this person who has problems staying connected to reality.
Yeah, and if it seems like I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, I just want to be able to give you guys the full picture of like what's going on here, because we're kind of going to skip back and forth a little.
Yes.
So in Underworld, Clara was the Lord of Chaos. That was like her character's name. Her boyfriend Patrick, whom she'd met in June of 2001 at a Celtic festival, was also into role-playing games. And in Underworld, Clara created characters for herself and her friends. Patrick's character was that of an assassin. She also created a secret coded language. For example, Tay, T-A-Y, meant kill.
Ooh.
So when Clara started referring to her father, the OG, as a threat, an enemy within the game, she was soon asking Patrick to go Tay the OG.
Okay.
Now, at first, Patrick thought this was part of the role-playing game. While in character, he would say yes, but soon it was a daily request. Clara's insistence was that the OG must die, and it began to blur the lines between the game and reality.
Yes, me lady, the OG shall not survive another fortnight. He shall be tayed before the sun rises.
You are going to tay him?
You about to get tayed up in here if you kept messing with me.
Bitch, I'm going to tay you upside your head.
Fuck around, get tayed.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to start using
Can we
that.
make some shirts that say fuck around, get tayed?
Yes.
Who wants one? Are you guys in?
Oh,
Let us know.
Merchatunity.
Soon, killing her father was not limited to the underworld. She had been researching herbal poisons so it would look like he died from natural causes, always stating that she didn't want to be tied to the killing. And Patrick, realizing she was serious, began retreating from his involvement with Clara.
Yes, yeah, I think that's what, because they are into these RPGs and kind of fan, I've had friends who were, and I've gamed before, but some people really entertain the fantasy world a lot. They think about it. They think about stories. They read books, novels, sets of books, and play these games. And so at first, to him, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to play along. This is kind of cool. She's, invented this underworld, created a character for me, and going back and forth. But then he slowly starts to realize, like, she's just constant with it. The OG must die. When are you going to do this for me? And like Patrick kind of starts, oh, yeah, sure. Oh, when the moment's right. And he's just like, holy shit.
I thought of a really great role-playing game.
Okay.
I'm going to be the princess who's locked away in the tower, and I'm guarded by the dragon. Ooh. And you must come and slay the dragon, and I will get true love's kiss, or I'm going to turn into an ogre forever.
Wait, isn't that Shrek?
Oh.
Oh my God, dude!
Well, you kind of look like Shrek.
Oh, I love Shrek. I look like Shrek.
Well, yeah, you kind of don't have a neck either.
I have a neck. I have a pronounced neck. We shall post pictures on our Patreon.
And instead of a donkey, you can bring a kitty.
Stop trying to make me Shrek.
I'm sorry,
dude. I was just going to be like, oh, I can be the knight in shining armor, and I can ride in on my steed, my valiant steed, and like save you. And then I realized you were just talking about Shrek.
I'm Fiona. Okay.
I think that's copyrighted.
Probably. Okay, back to the story. So Clara had also been pressing Patrick to move in with her, Katie and Mike. They wanted to get an apartment together. But there was only one problem. Money. None of them had any.
And there's like 4 or 5 of these kids, young adults, and nobody talks about having to go to work and shit.
That's what I noted here. I was like, I guess once again, the concept of working a job escaped them.
No one's like, I can't slay the OG today. I have to go to Walmart.
You can't tay the OG because you're working at the Harry Tita.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, then again, Clara mentions her inheritance. Well, if only my dad would die, if someone would tay the OG, I would have money to hook us up with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment.
Yeah, we could just hang out and like play games and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just need someone to murder my father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am your father, Luke.
Hey, Patrick. Every time he opens his IM.
Yeah.
Did you kill my dad yet?
Yeah, pretty much. That's what was happening. Well, fall semester, her grades were once again in the crapper. Her journals were filled with these lines like, I hate life. I hate society. Mankind is fucking stupid. I mean, I can get down with that.
Well, I have those feelings sometimes.
I hate Christians. I hate God. I'm sorry. She didn't really have that accent.
Why do I have to do this today?
The journals Clara kept exhibited a total narcissistic sociopath who wanted everything to be about her. She wrote about suicide, but truly wanted nothing to do with her own death.
The societal constructs of our economic system suck.
She was solely focused on her life. She showed no empathy or compassion for others. For Clara, everything was about Clara. Her life, her problems, they were of the utmost importance. Clara often cited her mother's passing as the emotional catapult for her life's downward spiral when everything seemed to just fall apart. Later, her sister Michelle would reveal these details of Joan's death. Now get this. Clara actually found her mother deceased.
Oh, that's pretty heavy.
Clara continued with her morning routine. She made herself lunch and then left for school. She didn't bother to call 911. She didn't tell anybody all day that her mom was dead. Instead, she left the body so that her father would be the one to come home and find his wife dead.
Oh, well, I mean, you could say she couldn't realize or she couldn't admit to herself that her mother was dead. Like, she couldn't. But, I mean, everything else you're describing about Clara in the aftermath of her mother, it sounds like, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that.
I mean, her sister said she basically went through the motions of a normal day without a care that her mother's body was at home waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I could say that, she couldn't admit it or, realize or tell herself that her mother's dead and didn't want to, realize what reality is, or she is got some issues in her own head, some mental issues of her own.
Like she's just a cold little bitch.
Well, I mean, there's that.
She's a cold-ass bitch, Dylan. That's what I think. We both know my opinion counts. So in the years following Joan's death, Clara's uncle, Pat, who was Robert's brother, and his wife were really troubled over their niece's strange behavior. At some point, Patrick went as far as emailing Robert, suggesting that Clara could benefit from some counseling. Robert launched back with a reply telling Patrick that he needed to mind his damn business, that he knew what was best for his kids.
Oh.
Yeah. So after that, family just kind of dropped the, hey, this is what we think should happen opinions. They just sort of backed off. And it was not too long after Clara befriended Kyle that she would open up to him about her personal life, sharing details she had not told anyone else. Kyle would later claim that he was sexually abused at the age of 12, so seeing anyone in peril, especially a woman, was just too much to bear. Shortly after their introduction, Clara and Kyle formed a fast friendship. Clara was calling Kyle daily, discussing an array of topics, weapons, role-playing, and she always managed to slide in one of her sob stories about how horrible her home life was. She'd talk about being bullied in high school, she was an outcast, a misfit, but her worst treatment was at home. At the hands of her own father. It was easy for anyone to see that Kyle was malleable, really easy to manipulate. Her stories seemed to affect him deeply. She planted seeds of discontent in every conversation. She told him she'd received death threats. And when Kyle asked, who were these from? She would say, "You'll never guess who."
Oh, it's the OG.
Yes.
I received Excuse me. I received a raven from the OG this morning.
Was it a three-eyed raven?
It was a three-eyed raven.
Yeah, she proceeded to tell him that the OG was he's poisoning my meat.
I believe the well has been tainted. You'll never guess who. The OG did it.
I can't even get a decent game hen. I can't even get a Cornish game hen. He's poisoning them.
I suspect my mutton was off.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to quit doing that voice. It's killing me. And I'm sure that there's someone in like another country or something like, these fucking assholes. Those are horrible medieval. Fuck that. The medieval times happened a long time ago. I'll make this voice all I want.
I've been to medieval times, and that was how the Green Knight spoke.
Is it really?
Kinda.
Totally like somebody who lived in Myrtle Beach.
Well, he was at Myrtle Beach, yeah.
Having to work this shitty job at medieval times. I'm the Green Knight.
Yeah, well, he had to work his way up.
To be the Green Knight?
Yeah, he was picking up poop and then he became a knight.
Oh.
I was like, you have to put in the years, bro.
And somewhere in the middle, you're like handing like roasted leg quarters to the serving the food to people.
Some gelatinous corn on the cob.
Yeah.
The food is terrible there, but I do remember getting really, really fucking drunk off pina coladas and wearing a paper crown.
Okay.
And raising hell.
But there's like horses and jousting and shit, right?
Yeah.
I want to go.
It's amazing.
I still want to go.
We got to fucking go. It's so great. Can we do
Okay.
that? That could be like our anniversary if I don't kill you before then.
Yes.
Okay. September 11th, 2001 was fresh in everyone's mind, especially for residents of the Metro DC area, as the Pentagon had been attacked. Clara told Kyle that she had willed the attack as Lord of Chaos, and he believed her.
Oh my God.
Straight out of state custody, Kyle is hanging out in a Virginia mall, and a security guard approached him as Kyle was wearing a knife strapped to his body, and it's illegal to carry a concealed weapon in the state of Virginia. So he was arrested and charged. As we see, this is a person not capable of making good decisions for himself.
Well, here he has this big knife strapped to his side. He's wearing his trademark trench coat. He loves his trench coat as well. That look. And you could see, could possibly the guards fucking with him? Yeah, maybe. But he could easily walk up and say, hey, you got a concealed weapon, sir. Even though Kyle supposedly claims that he went out of his way to uncover the knife. But it's just, come on, dude.
Well, by this time, Kyle was living with his girlfriend, Brandy, in Maryland. And as I mentioned before, Kyle really didn't want to feel like a burden to people. But Brandy's mother had been very welcoming. She wanted to help Kyle sort out his life so he could be productive, get his Social Security money, find a place to live, and move forward on his own. And Kyle was very into Brandy. He would later admit that he and Clara had a relationship that transcended sex. Sure, they'd fooled around a bit, even though they both had romantic relationships with other people, but he said it was weird. He wasn't attracted to Clara at all physically. At the time, Kyle explained in an interview, he was shallow. He liked only girls who had hourglass figures, were conventionally pretty cheerleader types. And Clara was none of those things.
With great asses.
Yeah,
That's Kyle's words.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Okay.
So he had a superficial, he liked a girl looked a certain way. Clara, from your description earlier, didn't fit this look that he likes. But at the same time, he's like drawn to Clara. And
she's telling him things like, I willed 9/11 to happen with my mind.
Yeah, and his schizophrenic,
because I'm the Lord of Chaos,
disturbed mind, he believes her. He thinks this is true, the things she is saying. So it's drawn him in. It's drawn him in completely to the point where he's even tried to have a physical relationship with her, even though he knows for a fact that he's not physically attracted to her.
Yeah, even though his penis doesn't want to cooperate.
His dick was like, please, sir, don't make me do it.
I would rather have sex with that turkey leg. It had more of an hourglass shape. Why are you looking at me like that?
I don't know. I'm just glad it's a woman doing that and not me. I don't think I can pull that bit off.
Okay. Well, Clara's siblings would later paint a stark contrast of what kind of father Dr. Robert Schwartz was. Her big brother Jesse called him a friend and confidant, as he often sought advice from his dad. Michelle called him supportive, and they both said he was a simple family man who enjoyed nature walks around his property, caring for the goats and horses on his farm. Sure, he was a man who had high hopes for his children, but he was a loving father who never physically abused them in any way.
See, that's telling. You got two siblings saying that what the one sibling is saying, Clara, is totally not true. And she's describing this almost daily abuse by her father to her friends. Horrible things. I think he might want me to die. He might want to be trying to kill me. It's just horrible. And you have these two other kids living in the same household, growing up with the same father. They went through losing their mother as well. And they're saying they have a totally different picture of him.
Yeah, that he was had a favorite flannel shirt that he wore all the time and jeans and was always out working with the animals on his farm and taking nature walks and just wanted a simple life.
Yeah, so either both of them are lying and Clara's right, or Clara's lying and they're both right.
Well, let's pause for a moment, Dylan, and take a break. And we are back. Joan's sister, Clara's aunt, would say the household was full of conflict. Joan was an alcoholic who had checked herself into rehab for drug abuse after the failure of her first marriage, which was at the end of the 1960s. She suffered some kind of mental break, was prescribed lithium, and continued to suffer from fragmented thought processes. Her marriage to Robert was dysfunctional. Robert was described as short-fused, impatient, and could be belligerent. Clara and her siblings witnessed much of the fighting between the parents. Robert refused therapy for any of the kids. Joan's family had a history of mental illness, and the Stone house had seen its fair share of maladjusted relationships over the years. As a matter of fact, this sister in particular had moved overseas to get as far away from her childhood home as possible.
Oh, wow.
So she definitely paints a different picture of what life was like for these kids. Clara was molding Kyle's delicate mind, leading him down this dangerous path. She continued her campaign against the OG. It was so easy to convince her friends that her father was out to get her. And let's face it, I'm just going to say it, teenagers are idiots. We were all idiot teenagers. At no point does it ever occur to any of these kids that Clara was just full of shit.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even to a certain degree, Mike, Patrick had kind of gotten to the point like, oh my God, this again. Because it's every day. It's constant. Like, she is very astute at like directing every conversation or anything they're talking about back around about me. What's happened to me? What's being done to me by my father?
Well, like her father poisoning her food. I mean, Katie had dinner there more than once and knew the food she'd been served was fine. But Katie never tells her boyfriend Mike or their new friend Kyle that she knew Clara was exaggerating or being dishonest. It's like it never comes up. At no point does Mike or Kyle ever say, this just sounds fishy.
Well, I mean, even that episode there at the restaurant, you remember that? Where they all get steaks.
Oh, it's an Applebee's?
Yeah.
Was it for Mike's birthday?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell the story, Dylan?
Oh, have you not gotten to that?
Honey, I read the whole book. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, but you're past that. Yeah. So, so they go out for Mike's birthday to an Applebee's because that's like going out to these teenagers, which I understand. And they all want to get steaks because who doesn't want a good steak? But then Clara...
Bring on the $10 steaks at Applebee's.
Well, I mean, yeah, and plus you get an appetizer, so there's that.
And you get the shits.
They all get their steaks. Everyone's happy. Kyle's very happy to be having a steak dinner because he doesn't have much money either. And I think Clara even went so far as to, I'll pay for everybody. Well, she gets her steak, Clara, and is like, oh, this steak's not right. It's too rare. Sends it back. The waitress brings another steak. Oh, this is too rare. It's not right. She sends that steak back. Well, the waitress brings her a third steak, and at this point is obviously like, what the fuck?
Really put out with this customer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, here's these kids. I mean, what the hell are they doing? And Clara takes one bite of it and is just like, oh, no, this is not right. Something's wrong with this. It even goes so far as to get Patrick to taste it. And it's like, I think the OG has somehow gotten to someone in the kitchen, and I think it's poisoned. And like then goes off into her Underworld kind of mentality and talking about Lord Chaos and all this shit the rest of dinner, while everyone else eats, and everyone else is like, "Oh, that steak tastes fine. I don't know what you're talking about." So I mean, that's just the lengths that she will go to just make it about her or try to direct, the entire conversation and stuff.
Yeah, it's Mike's birthday, but she turns it into this whole scenario about herself and tries to tell them that somehow her father has had this steak poisoned.
Come on.
And like no one's thinking this is weird.
He's compromised someone in the Applebee's kitchen.
This is why I'm kind of like, dude, these kids are idiots.
Well, yeah, I understand why you
And
would
we're
say
all idiot kids. We all did stupid shit when we were young.
Well, no, but even when I was young, if I was there at the table with my friends and one of my friends did this, I'd be like, What the fuck are you talking about?
I would have been like, God damn, I hope they did. Now shut the fuck up. And then
Yeah.
I like shoved the steak in their throat. Eat it.
I'm trying to eat my 2 for $20, y'all.
Yeah, you're ruining my sirloin. Okay.
You're ruining my 6-ounce sirloin.
Yeah, how dare you? In November, there were some IM exchanges between Kyle and Clara where he asked if she'd be mad if he killed her father. And she said no. Just don't do it now. And then she's like, I don't want to discuss this online.
So she's so manipulative. She's been grooming Kyle literally this entire time. She saw him. She's intelligent. She's no dummy. And as soon as they met him, it wouldn't surprise me if she was like, I can use this guy. Because she's been trying to groom Patrick. Mike's like, whatever, doesn't really give a fuck. And she sees in Kyle a vehicle to get what she wants.
Yeah, and Katie's just sort of goes along with
and Katie's
whatever.
just there, just
The
Katie.
yes man.
Yeah, she's just hanging out, if you will.
Yeah, whatever you like.
I have somewhere you can park your hand for a moment.
Whatever you like.
And my warm lady bits. Sorry.
Between me two crescent rolls. Oh, mind the butter.
Oh,
I need some help churning it.
I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay.
But yeah, so Katie's along for the ride. Mike's like, whatevs. Mike's got plenty of his own stuff to deal with, sounds like. Patrick's like, Clara, you're cool, but this is a bit much. And here comes Kyle. And just off the rip, she sees in Kyle someone she can use.
Right, and they're like messaging each other every day. They're on the phone constantly. He's, when he can make it up to the school because he doesn't have a car. So he's counting on like Mike to give him rides. Staying in Claire's dorm room. There was one scenario where he had spent the night in Claire's dorm room, and while everybody was asleep, he was convinced that he had ran around campus and had killed multiple vampires that night.
Yeah, so he can, when the bad vampires get near Kyle, this is how deep he is in his psychosis. He can smell them.
Yes.
He can sense that something bad's going to happen. So he's in kind of a manic state, can't really sleep. Everyone else is, passed out asleep, sound asleep. He literally goes outside of the dorm room and feels that he has to protect his friends from these bad ones that are going to come get him. And I mean, that's how he's really starting to, his psychosis is kind of churning and getting worse and worse as all these events go along.
Yeah. So as, these types of things are happening, Kyle's battling vampires in his head.
Yeah.
After Thanksgiving, which Clara had spent at home with her father, she overnighted Kyle a check for $60. This was so Kyle could buy a bandana, or a do-rag as he called it, gloves, and to pay for Mike's gas. Now, Kyle knew he needed to be very cautious carrying out any assassination, especially since Claire's dad was a renowned DNA expert. On the evening of December 7th, 2001, Clara invited Kyle over for dinner with the OG. Robert was clearly taken aback at another one of Clara's weirdo friends, dressed all in black, wearing a trench coat, sword strapped to his back like a Ninja Turtle. I mean, a lot of parents would be like, okay.
Well, I mean, if Kyle showed up at my door right now, this young man dressed like this with an obvious sword on his back, I would be taken aback. I'd be like, okay, what the hell is this dude doing?
I would be like, welcome to the Matrix.
I'd be like, no weapons allowed inside the tavern.
I would just speak to this kid in like a robot voice the entire time. This is why our kids don't bring friends over.
But you would actually throw Kyle off because he would think that you're in the know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So on this evening, Kyle became convinced that Clara's stories of being poisoned were real. He would tell authorities that the meat definitely tasted off and that something wasn't right with the meat. Clara told him after dinner that she had a Christmas vacation planned with her father. They'd be going to the Virgin Islands, and she was convinced her father would murder her on this trip. She knew she wouldn't come back alive.
Oh, so now she's bringing up this definitive timeline. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to me.
On December 8th was a cold, rainy evening. Kyle, Mike, and Katie drove to Loudoun County, Virginia, to the home of Dr. Robert Schwartz. Clara was in her dorm room 100 miles away at James Madison University, where she was on the phone with a friend for about 2 hours, creating an alibi for herself. Kyle knocked on the door and asked for Clara. Dr. Schwartz explained that she wasn't there. He then invited Kyle inside, offering to write down Clara's phone number at school. While Dr. Schwartz was gathering the phone number, Kyle confronted him about the alleged abuse and his plans to murder his own daughter.
Oh my gosh.
Kyle pulled out his concealed 27-inch samurai sword, attacking the 57-year-old man.
So even with his reluctance about her friends, I'm like, oh my God, they're losers. What are you doing showing up at my door? In this instance, he invites him inside, makes sure he gets the contact information so he can talk to Clara, and he actually, doesn't realize what's going on in this young man's head.
No.
That he's there literally to kill him.
He died with a total of 27 stab wounds. After about 35 minutes inside, Kyle made his way back out to the car. Inside, once he's inside this Honda Civic, Kyle hands Mike the sword, and Mike wiped the blood off the blade, and they wrapped it in some towels. Now, here's when things take a stupid turn, as if this whole situation isn't stupid. Due to the rain and the Schwartz's dirt driveway, Mike's Honda gets stuck in the mud.
Well, I think we've heard this before in Stupid Criminal News.
Katie suggests they call a tow truck. There's a quick debate, and the three agree that instead of calling from the Stonehouse phone, they should ask a neighbor if they can use the phone.
Yeah, because the neighbor's not going to remember, and the tow truck won't know where they drove to unstick you.
When the tow truck arrives, the driver completes the customary paperwork, including jotting down Mike's tag number, the location of the vehicle, and then he follows the trio to an ATM so Mike can take out some cash to pay him. At Mike's house, he and Katie stash the sword in his downstairs basement bedroom. Clara places calls to her friends, finding out that the deed has been done. Afterwards, she messages her sister to say their dad is supposed to come up to James Madison University for dinner the following day.
So Clara's outlined her alibi, not worried about what her friends are going to do for themselves. And I do see what you're saying about Mike and Katie. Because even though they were like, oh my God, whatever, kind of tired of hearing about it, we're not going to do this for you, obviously. They're going to, be part of it, though. I don't get, if someone's like, will you drive me over to this house? I want to kill this person. And then after I do that, I'm going to come get in the car, probably covered in blood, I'm sure. Blood everywhere. And I want you to clean up the murder weapon and then, help me, hit the table. Help me get rid of everything and cover it up. I'm not going to be part of that, dude. I just don't understand the people's mentalities during these things.
And don't call Dylan. As soon as Dr. Schwartz's body is discovered, Loudoun County Sheriff's Office detectives are sent to James Madison University, where they first locate Clara Schwartz. She's in a room, which they note right off the bat is absolutely disgusting. They inform Clara that her father is dead. Clara has almost no reaction whatsoever. She doesn't ask any questions, which the officers find curious. Her body language indicates that she seemingly already knew about her father's murder.
Well, there you go. She's not that smart, is she?
Clara escorts officers to her sister's room where she informs her of the bad news. And the sister's reactions, it couldn't have been any more different than Clara's. Michelle has what officers called a typical response. She's sobbing hysterically, she's asking a million questions, and just appears to be in complete disbelief at the news that her father is dead.
Yeah, it's a natural reaction when someone comes to you and says a loved one's dead. Almost the next question out of your mouth is going to be, what happened? Why? Who? What do you know? Oh my God. You're going to lose it. You're going to be shocked at that. And if you don't have any of those reactions, that's the number one thing. Not asking questions, seeming rather calm or cold about it. I mean, how could you not notice as a cop or an investigator?
An autopsy reveals that Dr. Robert Schwartz died from 40-ish stab wounds. So he had 2 stab wounds to the neck that pierced completely through to the other side. He had about 27 or so punctures and slices on his torso. He was lying face down on the floor. There were many superficial stab wounds post-mortem on his back, and there seemed to be 3 shaped in a clover, sort of ritualistically carved into the upper left part of the back.
Oh my God.
The pathologist determined the killer was male, and that it would clearly take a lot of strength to do this kind of damage. So that's why they were like, there has to be a male assailant. She also noted that this appeared to be a serious rage killing in the description of the autopsy. Now, in the days following the murder, Clara wrote in her journals that her family was isolating her since Robert died. Again, all about Clara. She felt they wanted to exclude her from all decision-making. At some point, the Schwartz children decide it's best to go to the sheriff's office for an official interview. Clara is the last to speak with detectives. During her first official interview, her attitude is arrogant and snooty. She initiated the conversation, and detectives can see she clearly has an agenda. Clara needs to direct the narrative, so she told them all about her life, her relationship with her father, and was openly dissing a dead man, which the detectives found very odd.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't you? I mean, that's a very strange reaction or, statement from a family member.
Most people will grieve over a loved one feeling guilty about all the bad fights or the trouble they shared, but not Clara. She was railing against her father, describing physical abuse, how mean he was, how he hated her friends, the way she dressed. She could never live up to his expectations. She continued on and on and on. And investigators were fine with letting her talk. I mean, they figure, hey, we've got all night. And then she threw Kyle, Mike, and Katie under the bus.
Oh, so it's a damn triple cross.
Now, without detectives mentioning her friends as suspects, Clara begins talking about Kyle, his sword, and how she felt maybe he'd misconstrued the things that she had told him. Maybe Kyle killed her father. It wasn't her fault, of course, but he did have problems.
So see, here's where she thinks she's smarter than everyone in the room. And she's also in such a habit of trashing her dad to anyone who listened that she just kind of automatically did it to the investigators beforehand there. She just, anyone who will listen to her story, my dad's so horrible. He does all these things to me. It's about me, how I feel. And then here's where she's going to go into the, I'm smarter than everyone, and I'm going to manipulate this, and I'm going to use them, because she's been using these people the entire time.
Well, Claire was so narcissistic that she thought she could talk her way out of this. And she didn't even realize how stupid her answers sounded to these seasoned investigators. I mean, they see right through her. Finally, Clara asked the detectives, if my sister thinks I had something to do with this, can she keep me from getting my part of the money?
So she's talking money in the in this investigation or interrogation as well?
Yeah, and the detectives is like, they're like, this is not really our area of expertise.
No, but they make note of that.
Yeah. Well, after that Friday, Mike began wondering if they could be questioned and considered accessories. Mike and Katie they just didn't know the depth of their involvement or their culpability. Katie told him not to worry. They hadn't done anything. We'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, all we did was, clean up the murder weapon and drive him to and fro, sat outside while we were fairly certain that he was killing her father, didn't alert authorities or tell anyone. But, come on. We haven't done anything.
Well, Mike and Katie are picked up while attempting to drop his Honda Civic off at a body shop. The pair is cuffed and they're taken to the station, placed in separate interrogation rooms. Right off the bat, Katie begins lying to investigators. She tells them that she lives at the Stone house, her parents' house. After she goes on lying for a little while, they finally tell her to stop. They're like, we know you're lying and it's time to start telling the truth.
How did Katie think that was going to work?
Hell if I know.
Like they don't know who lives at this freaking house,
I don't know. I'm a 40-year-old woman. I'm not a dumb teenager, so I don't know.
Oh, my God. Katie, please.
Mike tells investigators that he drove Kyle to the Schwartz house, but otherwise had no involvement in whatever happened. He claimed to have no idea what Kyle's plan was, but he said he felt really bad when Kyle went inside the house and prayed that Dr. Schwartz would go to heaven. Got him. He did know.
You did know, or you're not. No, that's not a good answer. No one's going to think that unless they think something bad's going to happen.
He also admitted to taking Kyle's sword, which was stained with something dark-colored, cleaning it and hiding it for Kyle.
I thought it was cranberry juice.
Katie told a fairly similar story to Mike's, like once she started telling the truth. And that she wasn't like Clara Schwartz or whatever the fuck her story was. Anyway.
What are you talking about? My dad's not dead. You guys are crazy.
I
Why are
live
you wasting
there.
my time?
That's my house.
Call my mom. She'll tell you.
Kyle is in bed with his girlfriend watching a movie on December 12th when the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office arrests him on first-degree murder charges. During his interview, he admits to killing Dr. Schwartz. He details the abuse claims and tells investigators that he was an assassin who was supposed to protect his queen, Clara. He also says that Katie and Mike didn't know what was going on, that he had asked for a ride but gave no further information about his business inside the Stone house.
Oh, my God.
Now, before his trial, Kyle would sit down with several psychologists, and during his interviews, his story never wavers. It never changes. He tells it precisely the same way each time.
Yeah, see, he had this characteristic of telling it like it is, telling his true feelings to people, opening up to people, and like lying wasn't one of the things he did.
No.
If this is the way he viewed something, or even if it wasn't real, even to this day, he would look back on some of these events and still, even though he's medicated and being, in the setting now, looking back, knowing it wasn't real, he still won't openly admit, I know that's not real. I mean, he still has that problem.
No, he still will sit down and tell you, I was in her dorm room and I had to go fend off these bad vampires.
Right, and I had to protect her, my queen, from her horrible father.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, but lying's not one thing he's going to do. That's
No,
not
not
something
at all.
he does.
Clara ends up staying with her grandparents in Maryland following her dad's murder. Patrick reaches out to her, and by this time he has moved away, like far away,
He's
I
like
think to South Carolina.
The smartest one of the group.
So he reaches out to her, and they meet up for lunch. And during the meeting, Patrick asks why she would involve someone as naive as Katie in something like this. He had known Katie much longer than he had known Clara, and he considered Katie a friend. Patrick let Clara know, I never want to speak to you or see you like ever again. It's done. We're done. Don't ever fucking talk to me.
If you need somebody tayed, don't ask me, because I ain't taying nobody for you in the underworld.
Now, after this, Clara will write these flowery statements of love for Patrick in her journals. She will describe marrying him and that she would do it right now if he asked. She says Patrick is the only thing in the world she cares about. She talks about how much she needs him, loves him. It's as if she's totally forgotten that he told her, like, you need to fuck off.
Well, I think in her narcissistic, manipulative mind, she can control her journal. At this point, she's lost control of everything in her life. And she probably doesn't like rejection, or being told no. And she's just making up this fucking narrative that fits what's going on in her brain.
Well, she probably it thinks that she can win him back. Like, I'm so good, I can get him back.
That's probably true.
This is not the end.
Right.
A search of Clara's dorm room and computer reveal a file labeled Kyle that has every message and email they ever exchanged. All the incriminating talk of, will you tay the OG, are seized.
And once they broke that very sophisticated code
Yeah.
of the underworld, they're going to know that you asked him over and over and over to kill your father.
After they had like 400 of like the Navy's finest cryptologists come in and break this code.
And it took like one of them's 13-year-old son to be like, I know what it means.
Yeah.
That's the language of the underworld.
The prosecution makes Katie an offer since her crime was merely like not telling anyone after the fact. She agrees to be a witness against Clara, who is finally indicted on murder charges in February of 2001. Almost every member of Clara Schwartz's family wrote letters asking that Clara be kept in custody until her trial started. They all believed she was a danger to herself and to the family. We're very much together on this point, they wrote.
Well, I mean, you can't blame them.
Clara's 5-day trial began in October of 2002. Kyle was brought in as a witness. Upon the advice of his attorney, he invoked his Fifth Amendment right, so his confession was read aloud, implicating Clara as the mastermind who orchestrated the killing of her father. The defense leaned into the idea that Kyle was a troubled, mentally disturbed young man who had acted on his own accord. Clara never asked him to kill her father. It was part of a role-playing game.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess as a defense attorney, you could go that route.
The defense introduced evidence from Dr. Schwartz's computer that could be a bombshell. Now get this. The computer analysis showed 3 news groups, all relating to child pornography.
Whoa.
Altogether, 41 images of preteen girls were found in states of undress and sexually explicit content. Most of the girls appeared to be under 12 years old with dark reddish-brown hair. One girl in particular had a braid draped over her shoulder, just as Clara was wearing in court that day.
Oh, my God.
The once surly goth girl who dressed in drab attire was wearing skirts, sweaters, and appeared bright and chipper in court. During cross-examination, Michelle admitted that her father often kept his laptop in the kitchen on the dining table. Clara would use it for internet searches. It had no password protection, so anybody could access it. Then another bombshell is dropped. All the downloaded child pornography was dated from December 5th to the 8th. There was nothing downloaded before that December 2001 date, though everything else, family photos, all sorts of stuff, was backdated to 1997.
Oh, so in 3 days, there's these horrible images on his computer.
When Clara had been home having dinner with Kyle and her dad right before his murder.
Oh, well, okay. That threw me for a loop for a second. Because if her poor father had these images, I'm still not going to say he should be murdered, but you go way up on the list of people, I think maybe. Don't feel that bad if you do get murdered, but it sounds like that's some Clara bullshit.
Well, that's exactly what the jury thinks as well. Patrick testified against Clara, and he was a slam dunk witness. He spoke with concise confidence. Clara was found guilty, and she was sentenced to 48 years in prison, which she is serving at Fluvanna Correctional Facility in Virginia. She'll be forced to serve every day of that sentence due to Virginia law. When asked if she had anything to say at sentencing, Clara replied, "Nothing that hasn't already been said."
Oh, yeah. Here's my middle finger. Would you like to meet it? Damn, Clara.
Kyle pled guilty in March of 2003 and received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. He wanted to spare the Schwartz family the pain of another trial. Now Kyle recounts the tragic death of Dr. Robert Schwartz with pain, guilt, and shame. He says he wishes he had never met Clara, and he truly feels sorry for Mike, his friend, because he'd only given him a ride.
Yeah, I mean, in this situation, with someone who's mentally disturbed, schizophrenia, a very significant disorder, I mean, it's hard. Yes, what he did was wrong and bad and horrible, but he was obviously taken advantage of. And just like if you watch the documentary Crazy Not Insane, and you look at these people recount who are institutionalized, and a lot of them are schizophrenics, paranoid schizophrenics. Their crimes, their violence that led them to be locked up. A lot of them don't remember it. They have a full-blown psychosis, and then they kind of come to after the fact and realize what they've done. And there's every one of those people interviewed in that show, that documentary, or documentary. What's the right word?
Documentary.
True remorse and sad, and they regret their actions.
And that definitely seems to be Kyle.
And it does seem to be Kyle, and that's another sad part of this story. And this poor man was murdered horribly by someone who had practiced wielding this weapon, which struck me as well. The description of his wounds. You're talking about somebody who swung a sword, fantasized, handled the weapon a lot, and actually was doing like moves you would do if you were in like a medieval battle, like running someone through and things of that nature. And so, my God.
Michael Full pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, and he got an 18-year prison sentence. Mike tried to unsuccessfully back out of the plea deal, saying that his lawyers forced him to take it. Mike said he didn't know Kyle planned to kill Clara's father. He admitted there was no reason for the man to die, but the judge agreed without Mike's part that Schwartz might still be alive today. Family and friends testified that Mike was a gentle soul who was looking for acceptance in the world. They told stories that he would give money to the homeless, he refused to kill bugs, like he was such a pacifist, and that if he saw someone in need, he would definitely try to help them.
Well, what I saw described was Mike was literally Kyle's ride everywhere. And that was his part in this. He had the car. Kyle got him to drive him over there. So, I mean, it doesn't really seem like maybe, directly after the fact, when he was being asked to wipe off blood and stuff, if he'd went to authorities directly after that, maybe they'd view it differently. I mean, that's what you got to do.
And Katie took a deal to get immunity in exchange for her testimony. So in the end, she's, I guess, the one that made out the best.
So in the end, Katie fingered Clara. Oh, did I just bring that full circle?
You did.
I'm sorry. It's a horrible, horrible case.
It's really,
and I'm being stupid.
It's really so sad. And do I think that Kyle doesn't need to be out in the world? I absolutely think that he should be institutionalized. I don't think he should be out in the world.
No, he should be monitored and supervised in some kind of a group setting.
Yeah. To get the life in prison, I mean, I just feel, I guess of all these characters, I feel very empathetic toward Kyle because he really didn't understand what he was doing.
Well,
I don't think.
No, he definitely doesn't. And it's just just a horrible take on our mental health system in this country. Our prisons are full of mentally disturbed people. A lot of the really ultra-violent, crimes have been committed by someone who has a significant mental disorder of some type that's went untreated.
Man, this is like the perfect storm of like this individual. The last thing in the world he needed was to meet someone like Clara Schwartz.
Yeah, and it's yet another case. We've done a couple of these in a row, it seems like, or recently, of manipulating someone to get what you want. I mean, we had Pam Smart manipulated those kids, and I just think it's really just a special kind of monster who would take and potentially ruin all these other people's lives just to get what they want. And I think they're really horrible people for it.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, Clara's going to get 48 years in prison, and one day she'll be out and about walking around, and I would be surprised if she doesn't turn around and do something else like this.
Yeah, I mean, at her age, she could potentially survive that 48-year sentence and make it actually out of jail. So, I mean, she's going to be pushing 60 or so, but still, it would not surprise me that with her full-blown narcissism and things of that nature, that she would not manipulate someone again if she got out. So she should be the one who had a life sentence and never walked
That's what I think.
free.
Well, today's resources that I used for this particular episode, M. William Phelps' book, I'd Kill for You, and also The Occult Killer, Clara Schwartz by Amy Bryant. And there's a lot of newspaper articles out there. Of course, this happened in the early 2000s. So there's a lot of articles from like the Washington Post and local newspapers reporting on this incident.
What was that you said? It's William Phelps?
It's like M. William Phelps.
He was that was a good book he wrote. I liked his writing style, and he really took this, big story, and a lot of it was lengthy interviews with Kyle. So it was through Kyle's perspective, which really, honestly, in all these characters in this story, I trust Kyle's. Is that weird? I trust Kyle's perspective more than especially Clara's, because he's just not going to lie.
Right.
Even if you don't believe, or if he's believing these fantastical things, he's still not going to lie about what happened or what he felt or what he thought.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's a great book if you want to learn more about this case.
Oh, my God.
Well, Dylan, that has been the story of Clara Schwartz, and we appreciate you tuning in, of course, to Mountain Murders. This is, episode 130?
Yes, I believe that's right.
Wow.
Yeah, we're going to keep trucking along.
Do I have to truck along with you?
Yeah, I'm going to make you.
God, I just want to get rid of you.
Yes, and we thank our new patrons, and we thank our old patrons, and we thank all of our listeners. And if you like us at all, if Heather's ever made you laugh, or you be like, oh my God, that's an incredible story she put together, or if I've ever made you chuckle, please leave us a 5-star.
Or if you've ever played a drinking game of every time Dylan says, oh my God, or what the hell?
Yeah, I tried to mix it up this episode.
Well, I hope you haven't murdered anyone out there, Dylan, with your drinking game.
Because that's been mentioned that I do say, because Heather does do the bulk of the research, all the research, I should say. And sometimes I just don't have anything else to say. But actually,
OMG.
Actually, that comes from, I'm actually astonished by what I'm hearing. And that just reflexively comes out of me.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. That's how you got to.
What the hell?
What the hell?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, so you can hit us up at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com for thoughts, comments, weird stories, anything. Just holla at us.
If you want to vote Dylan off the island?
Yeah, if you want to vote to keep me on it.
Okay.
And you can also leave us a 5-star review. That really helps us out, keeps us visible out there. It just takes a second.
Recommend us to a friend.
Yeah.
We have this great refer a friend program. You're not actually going to get anything from us, but if you refer a friend, we will love you forever. How's that?
Yeah, if you refer a friend, they mention it to us on and through some form, we will shout it out.
Shout it out.
Why not?
Okay.